Hi, my name is Chelen and I'm from the Africa Tech Festival team. I'm here today with Nekesa Were from Afrilabs ahead of her upcoming session at East AfricaCom, which will be taking place virtually over the 10th and 11th of May. Thank you for joining me, Nekesa. To kick off, can you tell us about how you got started in your career?
Well, for the longest time, I always knew that I had a passion for operations, so the back end really of any organization, so the operations. I really love to plan ahead, and so I had a huge passion for strategy and vision, and also building partnerships. But then I think mostly I understood that I had a passion for building communities. And when I translated that into what it meant for me as a career, I eventually landed on, and I was really looking for what would be like a catalyzer for what I found, or what would catalyze what I found really interesting and important to do. And so I began to really appreciate how transformative the ICT industry is, especially in working with innovators or working with entrepreneurs or working with communities, and really just transforming how those communities work. So at that point, and I think this was maybe 15 years ago, it became really clear to me that my work was going to be around operations strategy and using ICT and innovation as a vehicle to get that going. And I remember one of my first jobs was with an organization called Inuka Kenya that's based obviously in Kenya. And we did a bunch of things, including working with grassroots communities to use different media, including ICT and innovation, to amplify their voices, to begin interactions with their communities and with decision makers, etc. And it was while doing that that I then joined the iHub community, which was just starting off then, and this was in 2010. I joined as one of the very first members of the community. And after being there for a few months, an opportunity cropped up in the operations department, which I jumped at. And I did this for several years, different capacities, starting off as an operations director, going into heading platform services, going into managing the community, and then finally 8 years later as the CEO of the iHub. And so over the last decade, I've really just found my niche as having a skill that complements innovators and entrepreneurs, and that has worked for me for the last decade.
And can you tell me a bit more about the work that you're currently doing at Afrilabs?
So I work as Director of Strategy at Afrilabs, and Afrilabs is a Pan-African network of innovation hubs. We currently have a membership of 347 hubs spread across 52 African countries, and we support these hubs in 4 key ways. One is in offering them knowledge and funding that supports the kind of work that they do. Another way that we support them is in providing them the kind of data that they need to make informed decisions, and also in supporting them in how they influence their national policies with regards to innovation, startups, and so on. And so my work as Director of Strategy is focused around planning the best way to do this work, do it sustainably, ensure that it has the right impact over time, and also that we have the right partners to do it with us.
And what achievement would you say you're most proud of throughout your career so far?
I'd say it's mostly in the strategy space. And so having been able to develop and implement strategies for really powerful entrepreneurship support organizations over time. So most recently, obviously, is with Afrilabs, where I am now as the Director of Strategy, having developed that strategy and now seeing it being implemented over the next decade. Also at the national level in Kenya, developing and supporting the strategy for the iHub, which was one of Kenya's first innovation hubs. And also at the startup level with an organization called Sandbox that I work for, which is a collective of SME experts working collaboratively to build long-term solutions for SMEs. And so the work that I've done across the continents with regards to supporting African entities to build their strategies and really impact the innovation and entrepreneurship space is something that I'm extremely proud of. I'll say also with regards to my last role before I joined Afrilabs, so like I've mentioned, I was with the iHub, and having walked the iHub through key transitions, including 2 acquisitions, is another thing that I'm very, very, very proud of. And then obviously just having been part of the Kenyan tech and innovation ecosystem for 10 years, and again, in different capacities at the iHub, as many people will know, was really fundamental in getting Kenya to the position where it currently is as one of the stalwarts, one of the leaders of innovation across Africa. And so having been part of that journey with a key innovation hub is a third thing that I'm extremely proud for. And then finally, I'd say would be designing and delivering a Women in Business program during some of my work at the iHub as well. This was something that was very much needed within the community, having something that focused on the specific needs for women and women entrepreneurs as such. So being able to finally design that for the iHub and see it flourish has been a bit of a highlight for me as well.
Thank you for that. And what are some of the challenges that you've faced in your career, and how have you overcome them?
So one of my biggest challenges, I'd say, has been fighting for a seat at the table. And this is in my individual capacity or for the organizations that I've worked with or the communities that I work with. And, so basically being in those spaces at those tables where decisions are being made, where key conversations are being had, is always been a challenge for me. And the way that I've gone about overcoming it is just always pushing for excellence. And I've found that when you push for excellence in everything that you do, in who you talk to, in how you talk to them, in how you present yourself, in the key points that you have to make, when you're always pushing for excellence, then you become next to impossible to ignore. And so that is the tool that I've used throughout my career, just constantly pushing for excellence. I'd say another challenge that I have faced or still face constantly is making the case and fighting for institutions to begin to recognize the innovators that they work with as people first, and not as the products that they're building. So that can come secondary. And this has particularly been highlighted for me during this last 2 years when we've been going through the pandemic. And it's really forced us to introspect about who we are, what we're doing, how that makes us feel, what kind of time we're spending on this and that, and what kind of pressures we're experiencing as innovators and entrepreneurs. And when you're working with entrepreneurship support organizations, it's really important that those organizations understand that at the end of the day, they're working with people. These people have feelings, they have families, they have pressures, they have things they want to celebrate as well. And so it's important for those organizations that support them to appreciate that even more, or at least the same in the same manner in which they appreciate the products that they're building. And so this has been an ongoing campaign for me. And I'll say that the way that I've overcome this is really just by always making it forefront of the conversations that I have, whether I'm having a conversation with an investor or a startup or an entrepreneurship support organization or a public sector representative. One of my key points is always the importance of putting the people first before their products. Yeah, and I think this for me would be the key strategy, the key challenges that I've faced and have overcome them.
And my last question is about your upcoming East AfricaCom panel, which is about empowering SMEs as the engine of East Africa's tech revolution. Can you share some insights into what you'll be speaking about?
Yeah, so we will say it's a really interesting panel, great speakers, great company. And our focus is on the SMEs and what kind of structures are in place to ensure that they thrive in the region. And so we would be talking about, again, entrepreneurship support organizations and exactly what kind of support they offer. We'll be talking about the investment space and how SMEs should interact with that investment space. And we will also be talking about digitalization and what opportunities there are for SMEs. So it's a pretty incredible conversation that I encourage everyone to log in for.
You can tune into Nekesa's session at East AfricaCom by registering for a free pass using the link in the description of this video. Thank you again for joining me for this interview, and we look forward to your session.